Ladies and gentlemen, so Scanadu, I came to Silicon Valley in 2011 with the idea that I wanted to make medical devices for consumers that were going to be FDA cleared. So that we had a new way of conversing, having a dialogue with our doctors. Because in 2005, I found myself in this situation. So I spent, together with my wife, almost a year in the hospital with our son. And this is how an ICU looks like. It's like evidence-based chaos. So my background is in computational linguistics. So I was in computer lab, so I should be very familiar with this sort of environment. But in fact, when I arrived there, I knew nothing of what was happening there. Because I didn't even know what SpO2 was. I didn't know what the correlation was between parameters. I didn't know what they were looking for. I didn't know what the statistics were, and they don't tell you anything. And I thought like, man, how is this possible that, this is the 21st century, and we're all educated people here. We are all in a very bad situation, and we cannot help ourselves. And I thought, well, it's because we don't have the tools. And, we don't have the tools because, like basically medical device companies build them for hospitals to be administered by clinicians and doctors. But the consumers have no medical tools. I'm not talking about healthness or fitness tools, but real medical tools. And so I came to Silicon Valley with the idea of this. This is how I grew up, like with the Star Trek tricorder, and this was Spock who went to, on an away team, and he came in and he immediately saw what was going on. And I thought, like, we need a device like this. But the interesting part about the future is, this was the 20th century, how the 21st century would look like. And this was certainly before Steve Jobs. So, because this is what it really looks like in the 21st century. You see, it's an A1 polish, it's a 4-cavity stool, and it measures everything that they measure there. And it does it in 10 seconds. So we spent a couple of years, actually, there goes my tricorder. We spent a couple of years actually doing this. And basically, how it works is, I take this in my left hand and I put it 10 seconds to my temple. I'm actually using the body as a circuit. We are located at Ames, where we got the inspiration. The soldiers are greeting every day. So we thought, like, why not use the body, not only against itself, but for itself? Now, so this is our portfolio now. We are delivering the Scout, which perhaps we broke the Indiegogo record a while ago, and we have our first 10,000 pre-orders. And the Scout will be delivered in March. It's now actually cutting steel, like they are injecting plastic. The PCBs are made, like. Larson is doing the testing. It's a very, very complicated device. I've run big labs in my life, but this was the most complicated device ever. Why? Well, because a lot of us are mathematicians. We made a toroid. And in the toroid, we put 5 cavities. And then we filled it with all sorts of sensors. And then we studied the Mars rover, and we said, like, hey, that's what we need. We need fusion algorithms. We need fusion of all these different sensors. And this became like a really very complicated enterprise. But it all boiled down in this little thing, which people can use very soon. We also have molecular diagnostics like Scanner Flow that does urine analysis and scanner flu, which does respiratory analysis. And all these things will go through FDA. So we made it clear from the beginning, we want to be certified. Our consumers, so we think that we are entitled to have medical devices. We are entitled to have our own medical information, to measure it. I think we are educated enough to know what it means, but we are also entitled to accurate information, the same accuracy as they have in the clinic. So no children of a lesser God. So the complete accuracy all over the line. And I think this will actually give a complete new conversation with our doctors. Because a doctor will be the information analyst. So this is what it measures now. So of course, heart rate, skin, it's even core body temperature, SpO2, respiratory ECG, ECG derived also, HRV map, as we, but systolic and diastolic blood pressure, that was the big part. Only on that part you could actually set up a company. Because we learned from consumers that the biggest installed base in America of medical devices is installed base of medical devices is thermometers. So replacing the thermometer is a good business model. But there is a bigger installed and unused base, and that is blood pressure cuffs. After 3 to 4 times, people don't use them anymore. And we went out in 5 cities and asked people in the street and in the focus groups, why not? Well, they're confused. First of all, they threw away the box. They don't know anymore how to do it. Secondly, they take their blood pressure lying down, sitting up, standing up, and it's different. So they get anxious, and the more anxious they get, they take it again and it goes up. So they're completely confused about this because it's not frictionless enough. So in order to make it frictionless, it must be without a cuff. The same for SpO2, without a cuff. That means that pulse wave transit time is not nearly good enough to wake blood pressure. We had to come up with a complete new model based on fusion. And we had to get out the ambient light also when you are talking about SpO2. So 10 seconds, uncuffed, and we in our investigations with the consumer, we found that there is this mass of people shopping for medical attention. We call them citizen doctors. And they are more interested in scanning than in tracking. So tracking is you track yourself. Like you say how many, it's a bit the narcissome. But so they are more interested in what I would call the empathicome, there's empathy, and they want to scan other people. They want to scan their friends, they want to scan their family, they want to have conversations about it. They want to play doctor. They haven't been able to play doctor for hundreds of years. And now this is the last barrier to entry that will fall. So that's the device. It's in black and white. The addressable market for this device is quite interesting, actually. If you look at it, so you see there's a 2.7 billion market globally that is now buying these devices, mostly digital thermometers and heart rate monitors, and blood pressure cuffs. But so if this were replaced, you will come up with enormous numbers. And then don't forget everything that is now called point of care, which is already a 15 to 25 billion market, is going to move towards the consumer in the mobile devices. Because if point of care, which means the bedside, if the bed of the hospital moves to the home or goes nomadic, well, all the point of care devices will also move. This is our mobile urine analysis kit. It goes into FDA submission next quarter. we promised the first quantified babies. So we did a lot of research on pregnant mothers, and we are doing another 1,000 now in Washington, Austin, and Phoenix, in the street with focus groups also. And this is about what if you could check the health of your baby every week and you could have a prenatal record? Because now we only have like one ultrasound. What if you have the complete quantified natal record of your prenatal record of your baby? You see, pregnancy, by the way, is the #1 Google search symptom in 2013. And we also did surveys with doctors, and they now rely on urine analysis kits, which they have to compare to color calibrations made by the supplier, and they don't like it. So this is ScannerFlu, our respiratory infection unit. This is still in proof of concept. In March, we will know how much of the pathogens we can really derive. And because it must be possible, if that is possible, you could have real-time epidemiology. So if you would distribute that at $1, and people could, just with saliva and with their phone, they could see if they have strep A, B, strep, influenza A, B, RSV. You could also do, actually, and they could do themselves population scanning and see where the virus hits, see where the virus should be contained, where if they should take viral or antibiotics. So an interesting thing that we asked in our surveys is, do you want to share, personal health data? And 71% say yes, they want to share the data. But there is a caveat. You see, I used to, for a while in my life, I was in telecom, and I had to persuade people that the towers that we built were not bad. It's the handset. If there is anything that gives you a disease, it is the handset, it is not the tower. But people don't believe it. Why? Because they accept the risk, because they control the handset, and they do not control the tower. The same is for medical data. Our data policy for this is very simple towards the consumer. That is, it is their data. And we ask them what they want to do with that medical data, which they will gather in enormous amounts. Well, they will share it. They will donate it to research. They will contribute it to expert patient groups. But they also want to sell it. They want to sell it themselves to pharma, to clinical trials. They can do whatever they want with it because it's their data. Personalization seems to be a big thing in what they want now, because we have personalized everything but not medicine. There is still that average body which nobody complies with. And so what is your personal temperature? What is like fever for me is not fever for you. What is blood pressure for me is not blood pressure for you. And it is so personal, because this is the first class of statistics, 68% deviation from the mean. Everything we say is 68% true, because it's 68% goes for 68% of the people. This goes for instance, one parameter. If I tell you about your blood pressure, I can tell you something about the ranges. If I say the range should be 140 for 80, that is for 68% of you. If I tell you your blood pressure plus your heart rate, that's for 68 of 68, and that's of 68, and so it goes on. So the whole human being, the uniquity of what we are. So in medicine, we are all outliers. There is no average body. But with these devices, we will build that global body. I'll give you, this is an Apple patent. It proves my point. See, the authentication of just the fingertip and the heart rate, it gives for trillions of possibilities. It is completely secure. Doesn't exist yet, it's a patent. But there is a company, Bionim, now, that has already a strap. So we also, in our 10,000, we made a global body map. We wanted to see if people were interested in what people measured all over the world, and they are. The connection between the data and seeing how people, their blood pressure is in for South Korea or Japan or India is of a very, is a very big importance for people. They're very curious about it. We learned something, so together with IDO, we are experimenting in, can design change regulation? And we think it can, because you see, consumers are not patients. Consumers are willing to trade off other risk than a patient is. Consumers want pictures, images, colors, fonts, sounds, tags, mostly good news. Patients in a clinical situation are completely different. They want statistics, they want numbers, they want ranges, they want words, they want diagnosis, prognosis. So it completely changes there. But the question is, and this is what we told to the agency, does it make sense that it is regulated, that it regulates from the time we have a symptom? Because when we have a symptom, this is our homeostatic system that gives us a trigger that we are already sick. What happens to the time before the symptom? If that is not regulated, it sort of messes up the complete chain. There is no preventive medicine if that is not regulated. I forgot I got a bit creative. So you see, that is, and Megan Moynihan, the former assistant director of the FDA, she said, no product today turns so many medical relationships on their head as Canada. And the time has come now for consumers. So wherever we are, they are not only shopping for medical attention, but they want their own devices. They want their own medical data. And they will get it, because, whatever the consumer wants. But we wanted to do consumer, medical, and mobile. So this is the slide I told you about. The Silicon Valley talks a lot about algorithms and big data. And let me give you an alternative view about it. Because not a lot of people have actually written algorithms. I can tell you, algorithms are actually not so difficult. We mostly write it in MATLAB because we got it for free at university, and it's the only thing we use. And so MATLAB, so the best algorithms are very short, which means secrecy about algorithms is not very good. If I see the algorithm, I probably can remember it. I can tell it in a bar or when I leave the company. So nobody has to be afraid that algorithms will be taken by one company. I don't believe that. Also, big data, when Silicon Valley talks about big data, they mostly talk about extraction from medical records of this data. You know what the consumer wants? That is integration of idiosyncratic data platforms. We are working on all these platforms and putting them all together. And this gives very interesting results. And this is the magic for the consumer, not the extraction from a medical record for which you need a degree in Egyptology. What people want from their health tech devices, this was about 10,000 Americans, 94% want is a tool to communicate with the healthcare providers. Nobody believes it's going to cost less. Whose health do they monitor? People in their family. The general education, we were very surprised that from all our supporters, 22% have a medical background. So we think we are on the right track because we are bringing these two communities together. Consumers, doctors, consumers, patients, doctors. And in the end, perhaps we should see life as a continuity, a topological momentum, where there are only two, a beginning and an end, you know, two singularities, birth and death. And we are not patient and consumer, but we are it all the time. You know, 80% of this audience is a chronic consumer. We don't see ourselves as patients, but we all have something. This is what people buy at homes in America versus the rest of the Indiegogo backers. Household composition. Age distribution, we score between 35 and 44. We do not score well in 21 to 24 and not about over 75. And you see, I think Star Trek has defined a lot of what we are in the 60s because they dared to imagine things that we now have. And so I spent a day in Bel Air with Leonard Nimoy talking about the tricorder. And he said, well, I could never have imagined that, you know, probably one day I will autograph tricorders. Thank you.